It's now 10 o'clock, and we might as well get started. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik. Excuse me. Lasok b'divrei Torah. I'll light a candle tomorrow. Anyway. Oh, that was a good slip. Anyway, I want to welcome everyone to our session today, and hopefully we'll have either Rabbi Miri or Rabbi Norman and Pastor Bruce to add to our discussion.
No Pastor Bruce today.
Oh, okay. Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to make mention that I brought in some extra reading material that may be of interest as we embark on this story for Joseph. So the last time we ended in our discussion about who is the man that Joseph encountered.
Excuse me a minute, Marty. Is there time for me to do my quote?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, David. I'm sorry.
Okay, today's quote is from The Road Not Taken, which is Robert Frost, and it formed the subtitle of my autobiography.
Right.
Two roads converged in a yellow wood. And sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as justice, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden back. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
That's a good one. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And not stopping by woods on a snowy evening is another one.
Mine too.
But excellent choice for today's discussion.
Good morning, Rabbi. Welcome.
Here's Rabbi Norman.
Shalom. Sorry, computer issues this morning.
Oh,
that's a first. Rabbi, how's Lynn?
That's fine.
Yeah. It pleases me to say that she's a tad better.
Good.
Great.
We're definitely seeing some improvement.
Oh, I'm glad. It's been a long haul for her.
Yes.
That's the best news. I'm so pleased to hear that.
Yes.
Yes.
God bless you, and God bless her.
Thank you.
Well.
Good. Thank you. What we're about to do, we're going to be starting our discussion with Genesis 30, chapter 37, verse 18. We had a lengthy discussion about the man last week, and we will try to move on a little bit. So if someone would like to read.
I'll be happy to.
Oh, okay. Ladies first. Still a chauvinist. I'm sorry.
That's good chauvinism. They saw him from afar, and before he came close to them, they conspired to kill him. You probably want to stop there, right? No? Yeah. All right. They said to one another.
Yeah, let's go a little further.
Dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits, and we can say a savage beast devoured him. We shall see what comes of his dreams. But when
Reuben let's stop at this point, and let's start talking about a few things. Any discussion that anybody or somebody would like to bring up? You know, I always start that way. Oh, come on now. Something may have popped in someone's head.
Of course.
Well, I have a question
Sure.
because my particular edition has a comment a little bit down where it says where it says that they cast him into the pit, but the pit was empty. We're going to find out in a few minutes, meaning no water in it. But the commentary says, but it did contain serpents and scorpions. And I'm thinking, whoa, I hope not too many of them. And I hope that they were able to put up with being in with all the serpents and scorpions. But does that say that in the Hebrew that there were serpents and scorpions?
I don't
No,
know.
No, but it does say it in the traditional commentaries.
Well, that's interesting.
The pit is going to be very important in this discussion too. Yeah, because there's a lot of midrash about pits, and this particular pit. Yes, Chris, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Again, it just strikes me that the thought of Joseph was not far from their brothers in the planning to hurt him, to destroy him, to eradicate him, because it says they saw him from afar. So they had must already been thinking about this in order for them to say, let's kill him, instead of, hey, there's Joseph, hello, come over, or whatever. So they were very angry at Joseph, and that bothers me because they were siblings, and there was 11 of, no, at that point there were only 10 of them, and no one of them had common sense to say, hey, stop it, it's my brother, it's our brother. They were all.
Well, that's to come. That's to come. That discussion we'll take up later this morning.
Right, I know that, but I'm still at that point, they're all in cahoots together to hurt him.
Well, it doesn't say anything, but what about, what do we know about Joseph that would allow them to recognize his approaching?
Oh, definitely.
With, how could they identify him from a distance?
His coat, his many-colored coat.
That's one possibility. What else?
Well,
there's a word we use for walking when somebody is very into himself, and the way they walk when they think they're when they're at the top of the heap.
Arrogant,
a strut or a swagger. Okay, so maybe that's what was going on, because Joseph still has his character. It's not just somebody approaching them. And they know from the past, Joseph always came to do what?
Carry himself that way, right.
But
also, do you think the distance from where Joseph left to Dothan was just around the corner, or he had already been walking for a couple of hours, or maybe a day?
Long
I
walk.
don't know.
It's a long walk.
According to what I said, they got there. He got to the place where they were supposed to be, and an angel or a person told him they said they were going to Dothan. So I think at that point, Joseph would have been a little tired of, walking in the desert. And I don't know, that still bothers me, that the brothers are so eager they don't take the finger off the issue.
Okay.
Arrogant.
Yep. Thank you. Gail?
Gail, you're muted.
Gail, you muted yourself.
There we go. Hello.
Okay.
I'd like a translation, Rabbi. It says in my translation, the brother said to one, "Here comes the dream master."
Yeah,
That
that's
there.
the one.
Could I have a
Mhm.
translation, please?
Mhm.
Master of Dreams,
It is. Oh, it's an actual Okay.
Baal HaChalomot.
Okay.
You know, the one who, the owner of, or the master, the Lord,
Okay.
the
All
Lord
right.
of Dreams, right?
So
Mhm.
what are the does anyone remember the dreams that that we discussed a week or two ago? What are they holding against him? What dreams did Joseph have?
Well, when he told them that they were going to, they're going to bow down and
Yeah,
et cetera, et cetera.
yeah.
And it's interesting, and again, I don't know if this is accurate. Here comes the dream master, that one there, the dream master, the big shot. Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
Any other comments about that? Yes, Helene. Helene, you're still muted.
I'm sorry.
There you
Okay.
go.
Okay, thank you. It's sort of common sense. When you're in a family and there's a crowd and you have a member of your family in the crowd, somehow you recognize something about that person. I think the genetic connection, there's something hard to describe, but it's not just looking at someone, a recognition of themselves somehow in the sibling situation may have been one of the issues.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. Okay. Let me call first on Joanne and then Rabbi Norman.
Well, I'm kind of thinking about the dreams, and in the dreams, they were, we couldn't decide last week from what the text said, if they were angry at him for saying that they would bow down to him. And now it shows that they were angry, but they've been building the anger up.
Right. That's my point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Before I ask the rabbi, does Joseph interpret his dream in this?
No.
No,
He does. No,
he
no,
does not.
no, he didn't.
And that's right. You are correct.
He didn't.
It's in their minds.
Right,
They're the ones that interpret.
right. Yeah, no, he never said anything.
And I think that this is something we want to keep in the back of our mind for a while as we get further into the story. First Rabbi, then Joanne again.
So I've mentioned to you previously that my friend and teacher Norman Cohn and I did some work in these paragraphs. So I'm going to throw a totally different one at you. It doesn't necessarily have it works in the Hebrew, but it doesn't necessarily continue on. So it's kind of like pulling it out of not out of context, but pulling out this one sentence and then challenging us or inspiring us to continue trying to understand the story in a different way, even though there's no textual basis for that as we continue. But you remember who the interesting character in the previous paragraph was the Ish, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And the Hebrew, when we get on now where we are right now, is that it's with verse 19. Okay. And again, you have to give yourself a little bit of imagination permission, that it's the Ish who says to Joseph's brothers, that the Ish announces him. He's the herald who said, aha, here, here he is. How are you going to handle this, guys? What do you do now? here and setting it up as a test. Now the only problem with the Hebrew is that the Hebrew, the verb of to speak, that he says something or he speaks, is in the plural. But again, we've seen, you go back to Abraham, that the ish, the stranger, the messenger, the herald of a particular announcement can be plural, can be several people. So Nora and I did a whole big thing about that, and it was just to see where people's minds would go if, and we were acting it out like bibliodrama, like if it's the ish who says to the brothers, okay, here he comes, let's see how you're going to react.
Very good.
How
Very
interesting.
good. It's an interesting take. Any other comments? Some of us are old enough. I just wanted to add one more thing about this subject. Some of us are old enough to remember Ish Kabibble.
Right.
And maybe we're the Kabibble part, trying to figure out who is Ish. Joanne, we'll get back to you. Sure.
Okay. I'm still on dreams as everyone is, but it said he dreamed the dream, Joseph, and when he told his fathers and brothers, they berated him. But up above that, it says, this is verse 9. He dreamed another dream and told it to his brothers, saying, look, I have another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and 11 stars were bowing down to me. So he did tell them what he had dreamed. On down. That's why they're so angry. They've been working on this, and it's been boiling inside of them. And around the campfire at night, they've been getting more frustrated. So.
Okay.
I think Marty's point was that no one interpreted, gave a specific meaning to the dream.
Exactly. Thank you,
Right.
Rabbi.
Leaving it open to them to, how do you understand this?
Right.
Right.
Thank you, Rabbi. That was good.
That's right. So the interpretations are not really by Joseph.
Right.
They're by I'm going to say the family members, because even Jacob is upset by this.
Or maybe even the listeners, the people that were hearing it, because I'm sure as we are individuals, we hear different things, even if it's he explaining something and you receive it differently, depending on what you feel about that person or what's going on in your life, or, you worry about the dog dying or whatever. It's just how you perceive it at the moment.
So, this is also a very important concept that you bring up, because we've covered two things now already in our discussion that we will come back to in the story of Joseph. Okay? Right. Basically, I'm just going to give you an idea that so far we have come up with things aren't as they seem, what they seem to be, or hear what they seem to be. And so it's an interesting concept that we're going to be returning to as we go through this story. Any other discussion here so far? Sue.
I have a question for Rabbi Norm. I know I don't know Hebrew. I wish I did, because it would give me a little extra fund of knowledge here about wording. But when they use the word ish, could it ever be interpreted as a voice? In other words, ish can be plural. Could it be voices of men rather than just men? Could it be a spirit of these spirit of man rather than the actual,
Physical.
It's a very good question, Sue. I'm not sure that I have a comprehensive answer. The bottom line answer is yes, it certainly could be. It could be just a voice. It could be an insight. But there are other words that are used when you're talking about a vision, or so there might be some kind of connection between all the various times that ish is the term, as opposed to a prophet who received a vision, rather than in the character or the persona of a specific individual or a group of individuals. But it's a good question. I'm not sure that I have a comprehensive answer to it.
Thank you.
There's a lot of playoff on the Hebrew word ish,
Yes.
and what that means, and playing around with the Hebrew letters and things and things like that, and trying to understand. But usually, I will make this statement. I think I'm correct in saying that whenever the word ish is used, it refers to a physical encounter of one form or another.
Interesting.
Something you can visualize, the encounter of one human being to either another or a set of other individuals.
Thank you.
Okay. Something happened, Rabbi. You're muted.
I'm muted?
No,
Yeah, you were for a brief moment.
Oh, I may have turned my head away. Okay. Do I have to go through that whole answer all over?
No,
we
just
heard.
we heard eventually, but it was
That was
okay.
good, Rabbi.
Thank you very
you.
much.
I'm having all kinds of connectivity issues, and again, so I
Okay.
apologize.
It's okay. First, Rabbi Mary, and then Larry.
Morning, sorry for being late.
We can't hear you.
Mary, could you move closer to the speaker, to your microphone?
Can you hear now?
barely.
It's
A bit.
very
Can
low.
you turn your volume?
Okay, I'm going to fix it. Fine. Keep going.
Oh, okay.
Rabbi Miri, we want to hear what you have to say, so we will struggle
Yes.
to hear you.
So
Please,
I'll
please.
let Larry. Oh, all right, Larry, and we'll try to get Mary back into
Yes.
into this. Go ahead, Larry.
When you spoke about Ish, is there any connection to Ishmael?
No.
No.
Ishmael is actually Yishma El. You know, the Shema from hearing. So Yishma, God will hear, or God. It's a different. It's a
Thank you.
good question, but it's different.
Any other comments? We'll still try to get back with Mary when she has a better connection. What about the pit? The comment is made, let's kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Any comments about the pit? Oh, Larry, yes.
This is from Hertz. A pit is a cistern where water was stored. These are still in common use in the East. But in another place, according to Rashi, no water in it, but did contain serpents and scorpions.
Oh,
It also says the opening is narrow so that anyone imprisoned in them could not get out unassisted.
Okay. Okay. Now, so where, who would have created the pit?
You have this plugged in, Ron.
Wait a minute, somebody is,
Yeah, you have it plugged into.
Oh,
Difference between.
okay. David, you go ahead.
We had it stuck in.
Okay, this is when.
Well, can they hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, because I didn't see where David's mic is now. I had a thought on them throwing him into the pit, even though they were saying, let's kill him. They threw him into the pit while he was alive. And they figured, well, we're not really killing him. Maybe the serpents will get him, or the scorpions, or he'll starve to death, but we did not actually do the physical killing of him. And that may be what saved in their own minds, their own souls, for not killing their brother. That's my thought.
Okay, it's a good excuse. It's a good excuse.
Yeah.
But
Wendy is about to throw me into the pit because I spilled my coffee this morning.
uh-oh.
All over the floor. You see me?
Back to the dungeon.
Yeah.
I'm going to be back there wiping it up, I think.
Oh God. Okay. First, I don't know who was first, Chris or Ricky.
I just want to know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Oh, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you.
We're good.
Let me ask pick Ricky
Well,
first, then Chris.
Topic, so let me get off and then we can come back on. When I first came to Tucson in 1958, there was a newspaper article, this relates to scorpions, a newspaper article that said there are no natives in Tucson, no native Arizonans, so you have to earn the right to be called a native. And there was a list of 10 things that you had to do. And the one I remember always was battle with a scorpion in your closet armed only with a shoe. So if Joseph had a shoe, he'd be fine with the scorpions and he could be a native.
Okay. Chris?
I like that, Ricky. That's cool. And there could be the scorpions that they are talking about is probably not real scorpions, but your thoughts and like your skeletons, correct? But my comment was in regard to what Rabbi Amiri says, that let me come back. The fact that they will not touch him, so that they will not be called responsible for his death. And I want to say with all my heart that the intention is far more valuable than the actual throwing him in there and we don't touch him. It was the intention that really mattered. I go back again to where God is telling Cain, get it together, man. You're gonna die. I'm paraphrasing big time, okay? But change your mind, because this thing is ready to eat you up. So rebuke it. Don't change it, so you will be free from this. And like I said, I'm paraphrasing big time. But so it didn't matter if they touched Joseph, their idea and their mind and their heart, which was the worst part. It was to destroy him, to kill him. Of course, God had other plans, which I love.
Thank you. Okay, Rabbi Mary, and then Rabbi Norman.
We have to go back just a little bit.
Okay.
Regarding the question of Sue, about if Ish is soul or a real person. And it rang with me in the creation of human beings. And God uses the terminology of Adam. But I recall that at one point it says, Ish veisha, a man and a woman. And I went back, the only one I found was Isha. So it seems to me that we're talking about a human being, Adam, humanity or human being, and in this case is in feminine. But so if he created them, men and women,
it seems that they are real men and women. But if I had to answer your question in a more esoteric way, I would say that there is not a person without a soul. So the soul is part of that human being if it's Ish. Because Ish, the root of the word is fire. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rabbi Norman.
Well, two things. One, and with the disclaimer, because the quotation goes back long before gender sensitivity in the way that we understand it today. But the tradition also says, lo ish velo isha, litain kedusha, litain bracha. There's no man without a woman to be with him. So, but it's a great theme for a marriage ceremony, at least a heterosexual marriage ceremony. But Marty asked the question, where do these holes come from? Where do the pits come from? And the guides, the tour guides in Israel will tell the story that they were, in a sense, burial pits. That as the nomads, as the Bedouin, as the wanderers would go through, they would put the bodies into these pits, and they were usually near an oasis because that's where the Bedouin would be staying for any particular part of time. So when the text says, but there was no water in it, they're identifying it as a different kind. It wasn't a burial place necessarily, and it wasn't a cistern necessarily. Also, it was a different kind of pit or a hole. That's the same word in Hebrew, a pit or a hole there in the sand.
If we think back to the Isaac story, the latter part of his story, he's also wandering in this area digging wells, many of which are covered, that they are destroyed. And then one, he's really successful. What happens when you hit a dry well and you forget to fill it in? You're left with a pit. And I'm not saying necessarily that these are left over from Isaac, but it could also be other people in the area that, because it's unusual to just come across a pit by itself. Or is the pit put there?
It's a garbage can.
By God, yeah. Does God create that? As a test, getting back to what was mentioned earlier, is the pit there as a test to see how far the brothers will really go? Yes, Larry.
Can the pit also be metaphorical in the way of punishment? A prisoner is put into isolation. A pit is also in Poe's Pit in the Pendulum. It was the fear of insects being alone, the darkness. And was this worse than death?
Absolutely, yeah.
Very good points. Very good points. Okay. Any other comments about this? Yes, Joanne.
Being now in Arizona for a whole year, water is so important. And when I read it, all I would have been able to almost to remember was there was no water in it. There was no water. And he'd been walking for this long distances, and they didn't even give him water. And that really bugged me when I read this.
Yeah, it would have been a good turn of events, especially if he had a hunchback. right? But anyway, we'll go on. Any further comments about that? Either that anyone wants to make where we are so far? Okay,
Well,
so
Marty?
Oh, Don, yes. Okay.
It's one of those open-ended questions of the brothers say, let's throw him into the pit and and leave him there. But they don't necessarily think that it's a death sentence. The second half of the phrase is, and when we get back home, we're going to tell Dad that a wild beast devoured him.
Mm-hmm.
They've kind of wiped their hands of him, and assuming that he'll never return. And I think somebody said earlier, they're disavowing any accusation that they themselves killed him.
Right.
I'll let Don, I'm going to ask a question related to that, but first let me ask Don to speak for a second, what's on his mind.
Yeah, well, I think Rabbi Roman preempted my question. I thank you for that. Because the pit was probably a dug pit. It wasn't a natural pit, which means it had fairly soft sides. And the brothers to throw Joseph in there, it probably had to be at least 10 feet deep. Otherwise, you get out, you just dig some footholds and probably get out. But the fact he wasn't hurt, I mean, if I fell 10 feet now, that would be it for me. And I'm just, so I guess that suggests, as Rabbi Norman said, that they didn't expect him to die. It wasn't meant to kill him. And, it was quite possible that he would get out. Anyway, my question, I think, is answered.
Okay, well, they're hoping that a savage, their excuse will go on to be that a savage beast is, devoured him. So they're basically, this is, in what way is this sinful? Let me ask it that way. What way is this sinful? Yes, Chris.
Well, as I said earlier, their intentions, they were not according to God's will, God's ideas of protecting one another and to keep your brother. And that's what I think the sin is, that they were so angry that they were not able to see straight as far as intended to be your brother's keeper, especially if he is your real brother. Well, half brother.
Do you remember we spoke something about this? Pause. Does God ever answer Cain? We spoke about this last year.
Right.
Okay. There's silence. There's silence when that question is asked. Am I my brother's keeper?
Right.
God doesn't answer it. It's a moment of silence. Prior to the event, God tells Cain that evil is crouching at your door.
That's right.
Okay, so when you have thoughts like this, you can run into problems. And is this pit something like the punishment that Cain has experienced? That it's darkness.
Yeah, it's a weight down. What weights more in the moment to you? You go ahead and do what your heart, your ego tells you to do, or reason with what you know of God and say, what am I doing? We all been in that place where we're torn between two things, the world and God. And sometimes we don't make the right decisions. We lean toward, like Cain, lean to, I got to do what I got to do, man. It's nothing else to do from my point of view, except to kill my brother.
Okay, good point. Good point. Yes, Rabbi Mary.
I'm thinking about this passage metaphorically. And for me, the metaphor here is in his dreams, he is above and they are down below. Not just down below, they bow. Right. And now, who's above? Who is below?
Yeah.
Good point. Very good point.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Well, let's move on and to verse 21. And maybe David, he always likes to enjoy reading for us. So please.
Okay, thank you. And then verse 21. And Reuben heard it and delivered him out of their hand. And he said, let us not take his life. And Reuben said unto them, shed no blood, cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, but lay no hand upon him, that he might deliver him out of their hand and restore him to his father. And it came to pass when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph of his coat, the coat of many colors that was on him, and they took him and cast him into the pit. But the pit was empty, and there was no water in it.
Okay. Well, this sort of reiterates part of our discussion, but any comments that anyone wants to make here? Yes, first David, since he read, and then Gail.
Yeah, Rashi's comment about what the pit also had in it is interesting to me. It says it contained the scorpions and the serpents, but he doesn't say that any of those attacked Joseph. They were just sort of there, sort of watching him. But
okay,
that's kind of an interesting comment from Rashi.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Gail, please.
I think it's interesting that they took his coat away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Not sure what was going on there. I mean, there's several possibilities. It wasn't like they were pre-planning anything. They just, I think they took it because they were jealous, but it's an interesting.
What does the coat signify?
Well, favoritism, obviously.
Favoritism, what else?
Power.
Very good. Yes. It also, what else can a coat imply?
Provision for cold weather, warmth.
Protection,
protection. Right.
Sure. Yes, I believe Joanne had her hand up.
When I think of this coat, because they say it's so beautiful, it reminds me of royalty. Someone that's royal would wear a much better coat than everyone else. It almost separates him from his brother.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes. Marcia, was that your hand? Yes.
Yes. Maybe the rank that he held in the family, to remember it by, this was somebody that we could not handle, his rank.
Okay.
Yes,
Gail.
Yeah, but I'm asking the question. If they took it and they hadn't thought of, I mean, we know what they're going to do with it later on, but when they initially took it, what did they think they were going to do with it? Wear it, burn it,
Who knows?
Okay, Sue.
I think simply make him more vulnerable, Joseph more vulnerable.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that was.
What do you do with it?
Well,
later they do have a use for it.
It comes up shortly.
Yes.
It comes up shortly.
I know, but at this point, they haven't gone that far with their plan. So it's kind of like they have this evidence and they don't know what to do with it or something.
That's right.
It's like stripping a soldier.
It's stripping you of your.
Yeah.
That's right, of your station in life.
Exactly.
I think that's what they are accomplishing at that point in time. But later on, we learn more about the coat.
Could
Right.
it also mean means or status?
Yes, yes, it could. Yes, Rabbi Roman.
You know, it's interesting that with Joseph out of the picture, Reuben becomes the one who naturally would be the next in line for the tribes. So on the one hand, I could see them taking away the coat to be able to give to Reuben, as a sign to give to Reuben. Okay, now in our point of view, you're now the one who should be wearing this. On the other hand, he's the one who says, no, we shouldn't kill him. So
Well,
either Reuben is conflicted or he has an entirely different approach in mind.
This takes us back to a little bit what you mentioned to a previous one-liner about Reuben's actions with Bilhah. The commentary there was that he was actually preempting his role that he would be the heir apparent. You know, in his going to bed with Bilhah, and it now comes to so the interpretation of who would receive the coat. That's what came to mind as soon as that was mentioned as one possibility, that would become fulfilled by receiving that coat of many colors. So that's an interesting viewpoint that was mentioned. Any other comments? Okay, I have several hands. Let me first go to Rabbi Mary and then Joanne.
No, go to other people. Go to other people.
Okay, Joanne, you're on, and then Rabbi Mary.
Okay. Well, they say they take the coat of many colors away from him, but he must have had a pack. And we don't know what happened. That pack would have contained dried meat, all kinds of things, water. But we never know what happened to that pack. It just kind of disappears. And if you travel in the wilderness, that pack that keeps you alive. And it just kind of evaporates. That's all.
Okay. I would have a comment about that you could also say that he was so arrogant he didn't feel he needed it.
Oh, okay.
There are people like that. I don't know. Rabbi Mary.
Well, what I find interesting, and I never saw that before, as we know, every time we see something new, we see Reuben trusting in God or believing God, because he says, I'm reading in the Hebrew, don't kill him, as it says, but let us leave it to God. V'yad al tishlechu bo leman etziloto. And he says, don't do anything for him, but there is a combination here. It's called al, but since it was written without vowels, I can do whatever I want and say, and the hand of God you're going to send to him so he can save him. So this is an interesting point that the reason that Reuben said, don't kill him, just put him there and let us see if God can help him. Let's the hand of God make the decision. And they were surprised that there was no water there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been mentioned that there was no water for him to drown. So, okay, let's leave it in the hands of God.
Good point. That's a very good.
Rabbi Norman, do you see the word al tishlechu as a connection with el yatzilem mi'adam? The hand of God is going to save him.
I had never, like you, I had never thought of it that way, but it's an interesting interpretation.
Yad el tishlechu bo.
Right.
The hand
Yad
of
el
God
tishlechu
you're going
bo.
to send to him.
I think I was wondering when David was reading his English, there was the word but was in there as a conjunction, which is not there in the Hebrew either. So the translator was imposing one specific interpretation, but Miri, I think yours is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Very nice. Thank you for that contribution.
You know, in other words, what she's saying is, you know, that Reuben says, no, don't touch him, don't draw any blood from him. We'll throw him into the pit. Almost then put like a semicolon. Okay. In you know, so that in order that God would be able to deliver him or to save him from their hands.
And turning back to his father.
Right. Yes.
Interesting.
It's an excellent comment.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And any other? Oh, yes, Chris, and then Joanne.
Listening to what both of the rabbis said, and I think it's so interesting, but that was prophetic because it was not the pit where Joseph was safe, and it was not that place where Joseph went back to his father, but it was prophetic. I as you were saying that, I was thinking, wait a minute, it did happen. God did deliver Joseph from that hole, and he brought him back to his father, not in that place, but back in Egypt. So I think it's awesome. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Very good.
That's
Yes,
awesome.
Joanne. Oh, okay. Joanne?
I was thinking along the same lines as Chris, that Reuben doesn't realize it maybe, but this is almost like prophecy. And he don't shed any blood, you know, let's see what God does, etc. But it's almost like a prophecy of what's to come. But Reuben doesn't know or understand what he's really saying. It's very much what Chris is saying also. That was it.
Okay. Okay, very good. Any other comments? Boy, we really covered the waterfront here. We covered a lot of good topics.
Waterfront in the middle of the desert? What? What is that?
Once upon a time.
Once upon. Oh, golly. Anyway, shall we read on then? Verse 25, whoever wants to read. Okay, David had his hand up.
Okay, and they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a caravan of Ishmaelites came from Gilead, with their camels bringing spicery and balm and
Ladanum, yes.
ladanum, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, what profit is it if we slay our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And his brethren hearkened unto him.
Okay, let's stop at that point so we can go back now.
Marty, let us read the next verse, please. Just
Oh,
the
okay.
next one.
That's fine. That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead, read that.
Yeah.
Verse
27,
28.
20.
No, 27 was where he said that, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites and let not our hand be upon him.
Okay,
And this
next
is the
one.
important line, for he is our brother, our flesh, and his brethren hearkened unto him. And there passed by Midianites.
That's what I just wanted to point out, that they know this is my little brother. He's flesh of our flesh.
Okay, it's not they. Who's speaking?
Judah.
Judah is speaking, and of course the brothers agree. But this becomes interesting that Judah is really now saying, in a way, respecting what Reuben has already said, and he's starting to he's seeing something else here that is very important in the discussion here. That it's not just Reuben, but for us, it's for us. It's not just Reuben, it's also for Judah, that they're seeing something beyond this feeling of let's get rid of him. They're seeing something else. They don't want it to go too far, but they want it to at least be this whole act that they're carrying out is an expression of how they really feel about the situation. They really want to get rid of Joseph, but they don't want to be the ones who kill him. Okay. What does, when we are doing the at Yom Kippur, and we're talking about sins of commission and sins of omission, or being passive to the, as opposed to active versus passive passive actions or the actual action itself that leads to some harm to others. Don't we offer some prayer at the time over Yom Kippur to that?
Mhm.
Rabbi Norman, you're shaking your head yes.
I'm nodding. I mean, are you waiting for a specific
Yeah,
quote?
go
Is
ahead.
that-
Say something. Say, the prayer.
No, just I think if we all start to go in our mind the list of the al chait statements, for the the things that we did, things that we did not do, and we ask forgiveness for them.
So we're going to yes, David.
I just was thinking about, excuse me, I was just thinking about why Rabbi Miri was so insistent that we add the rest of verse 27. And I believe it is that, let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our flesh. And I think there's a very critical issue that Miri is raising here. And I'm not sure I'm correct, but I'd like to add this. What happens if you have a brother who has stolen from you, who has broken the law, who has served time in prison, and the rest of the family really does not want to have him as a brother anymore? And I think that opens up a very important subject about being our brother's keeper. Does that happen under any circumstances, even if the brother or the sister has robbed and stolen and broken the commandments, one of the commandments? Good question.
Good question.
It's an excellent question. Ricky, were you trying to raise your hand or?
No, taking a drink. Cheers.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Fine.
Yes, Chris.
In the kitchen and
Chris, go ahead then.
Thank you for taking my number here. I would like to say, what would God do with all of us that we have never kept 100% of his commandments? How would he deal with us? With the same compassion and mercy that should we deal with that black sheep in the family? It's something that we need to believe, that if God is compassionate and merciful toward us, are we supposed to do the same with others? Thank you.
Good question. Okay, I see Gail's hand and then David's hand.
This brings up an interesting question that's out there every day. People who are addicted to drugs and what happens, what they do to their families to keep their addiction going. They rob, they steal, they lie, and this can go on for years and years and years. Very, very difficult for families to deal with someone in the family like that.
Yes.
It's very prevalent. So, you know, I'm wondering though, is Joseph guilty of anything at all?
Can you think of anything that you may?
Like, is he guilty of arrogance or not? Or are we thinking?
Yeah, and pride.
Yeah.
Trickery.
Arrogance is one of those that's listed in the Al-Khair
Mm-hmm.
litany that Marty was referring to.
And so anything else that comes to mind, Gail, that, and then, and I'm going to call on Marcia in a little bit, but Gail, what came to your mind first, the different things?
Are you talking about Joseph now?
Yeah.
Yeah, arrogance, obviously.
Arrogance.
Yeah.
Okay. And yet, okay, Marcia.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, what we've done wrong. But how about the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not kill. They didn't get them yet, but isn't that the background of all the stories that they tell in the Bible? And also the love of your family. When it says they should honor your mother and father, but it really is extended to the whole family, maybe. So maybe this is something that is grown in them, even though they haven't known about it.
Another good point. Yes, David, and then Don.
One of the other points is that what is the rule if your sister or your brother has stolen and broken this very important commandment, and then he shows no repentance, no remorse, intends to keep on doing it, and all he asks you for is to keep on throwing money at him. I really don't know, and I really again think that Miri really hit the nail on the head when she wanted Miri wanted us to continue with the end of verse 27. And but what if the brother or the sister is unrepentant? I think that's an important part of that.
I can tell you, I can answer that. We know someone who had to deal with this very issue with his grandson. And after a while of constantly trying to help him out, suddenly said, no more. And unless you change your ways, there were a lot of different bad situations that this grandson would be either creating for himself or other people. And this fellow said, no more. I cannot deal with that. It's way too much. But they have left the door open. Okay, if the grandson can change the ways and everything and come back and return. But that's one of the things about repentance. We can even have a discussion about that repentance, but I'd like to save that for later, when we really get closer and closer to that point. But all I want to say is you have to change to show that you really mean it. You have to change your ways. But
Well, thank you.
But he's still a family member.
Right.
He's still a family member.
Thank you for saying that. And Rabbi Miri, thank you so much for insisting we go on to verse 27 as you did.
Sue wanted to add something.
Yeah, David, the question that you pose, I am sure, plagues every generation of Jews, especially because we are, in effect, told to honor our family and to cherish our family. But I have never taken the teachings of Judaism as absolute. Quite the opposite. I have taken them as guideposts, a goal that we strive for, but may not be able to achieve when we apply our individual choice in the matter, and we weigh things and we try to establish some kind of balance. If it is somehow threatening to us to follow the commandments to the nth degree, we have to change our course a little bit. That's the way I feel. It's my own personal take on things. I'm not an absolutist by nature. I weigh things, and I think every situation brings something somewhat unique. And while it is a wonderful goal to be a loving person, respectful, sometimes the choice has to be, we cannot no longer do it with a particular individual because of circumstances that we have no control over. We don't control things at all, except ourselves. And some of us are witness the diet here. Not much control there, but I'm just saying. I think Judaism, for me, is best defined as always recalibrating balance and trying to make good, wholesome choices.
Excellent choice. Excellent. Very good. Okay, you've simulated a lot of hands. A lot of hands.
I've had my hand up for a while, and I want to catch something that Sue just said, because it sort of sounds like you've been in the program. No, the take care of yourself, that you don't have control. I said earlier, that I just jumped in and I said tough love. But it's also this balance, as Marty will understand what I'm saying because he's always bringing me into the conversation. Chesed and Gavur. We are open, have the mercy, but we also must restrict how much we give. I mean, we can give and give and give, but at some point, the giving has to stop. In the program, we frequently use the expression power of example, that by how we take care of ourselves, hopefully, the other person, the problem person, will see that it might, that we're taking care of ourselves and that they have to do the same thing. And that we're not going to take care of them anymore. They have to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like it took me, it started all with, with something Gail said, what do you do with the problem person in the family? You go to an Al-Anon meeting.
Okay, Rabbi Norman first, and then I thought there were some other hands. Okay, Gail, and I know Rabbi Miri and Chris have had their hands up. So first, Rabbi Norman.
I don't want to dominate conversation in any way, but there are three quick statements that I would make. One, back to the hypothetical question that David was raising about a member of the family who really does not show teshuvah, does not show any kind of repentance and whatever, but continues in the behavior that that is destructive. there's lots of literature stories in the Hasidic literature of they must have encountered a lot of this in their world. And the bottom line, both from their own experience as well as the parables that they tell, is if you have a situation like this, a son, a daughter, a grandson, but whomever it might be, love them all the more. Now it leaves it up to us to define and explain what that really means. It doesn't necessarily mean accept the behavior, but we will respond in different ways. But the ultimate lesson is to continue to love them. I think Ricky just used the phrase that we all fall back on, of tough love. It's still emphasize the love. Be as tough as you need to be, but emphasize the love and make sure that that individual still knows that he or she is loved and welcomed into the family. That leads into a quick statement also coming back out of the Yom Kippur discussion that we had before. Yisrael afel pi shechata Yisraelu, is that a Jew, even though he or she may be a sinner, and that leads into a whole other discussion of what's a sin, but is still considered a Jew. In other words, we don't kick anybody out of the community for what they might have done or what they might have said they were going to do, the intention or whatever. That's still that acceptance and that recognition that there's still the opportunity for repentance and for coming back into the community, no matter what. The third, and now I forget who was it who was, Sue was talking about that the mitzvot or whatever provide the guideposts, but not necessarily the literal word for word interpretation. Certainly that changes generationally and whatever. Is the fallback position from rabbinic literature is Ela mitzvotai b'chai bahem v'lo lamut bahem, is these are my mitzvot, and I'm affirming what you said, Sue. These are my mitzvot. These are my life, what I translate as life sanctifying acts. These are my commandments, so that you live by them, not die by them. In other words, you make sure that they help you affirm and find sanctity and meaning in life, rather than risk your life. And by life there, we're also implying relationships and decency and integrity and and morality, rather than you should die by them. So affirming what you were saying. When we do move on to the next sentence, I'm reserving the right to bring something else up.
You got it. Okay, there were several hands that went up before, and I'll have to see them again. Don, I know you were one of them, and Rabbi Mary. So let me let Don go first, and then Rabbi Mary.
Just two things. Going back to the original question about what was Joseph maybe guilty of, I have to remember that he was a kid, and if anything, he was guilty of lack of empathy or childish selfishness, because he was unaware of what his dreams did to his family. And so I think in this case, he was like a total innocent. Why am I in this pit? That never really comes out. And the other thing was, and I'm jumping forward here because there's an old saying about no good deed goes unpunished. And I'm thinking about Judah saving Joseph's life, and then not too many verses ahead, his life goes in a downward spiral. He's never rewarded for that. Anyway, those are the only comments.
Okay, thank you. Very good. Rabbi Mary, you had your hand up before.
Yeah, I also don't want to take over. The two sentences came to my mind is Israel arevim ze lazeh. Each of us is in charge or responsible for each other. And we say Acheinu Bnei Israel. We use the word brothers a lot. So it's a community that it's a tribe, there is a family. And that's the sentences that Rabbi Norman said. But, I'm just going to pose something, let's not answer it so we can continue. But in my studies and in reality, if a member of the congregation was corrupted to steal money and to so forth, and he went to jail, etc., would the congregation take him back? And it's a big question, and I can tell you that not all the congregation are going to take him back. And that's the question. Without naming, there was a rabbi that was 15 years in jail in Arizona. 15 years. And no rabbi in town visited him. He cannot go to congregations. There is an isolation, and in the very, very, very past, Spinoza was under a cherem, which was
excommunication.
Excommunicated, yes.
And it's very rare. I mean, these days we don't do it as saying that. On the other hand, it's a very ethical and philosophical question, David, that it's not an easy answer whatsoever. As Sue said, it's wide, and I think that all of us have to struggle with the answer about it, because I find it one of the very, very difficult issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other comments? Gail, you had your hand up, and then Joanne.
Yes, I have to relate a actual true story in my life. My second marriage, I had 4 stepchildren and my 2. And my oldest stepson got into drugs and wouldn't go to school, and just, everything was upside down. Bottom line is, one day I took the family to McDonald's for lunch, the kids, came home and the house had been robbed. Okay. And all the children's rooms had been ransacked and things were taken. Turned out he had set this up with friends of his. He called them and said, "We're going to be gone and I'll leave the door open, blah, blah, blah." Ended up in jail, juvenile hall. He was 16. So he does his time, which turned out to be about a month, and finally got back into school. Barely graduated, but did. It was interesting to see his siblings' degrees of forgiveness. Some forgave, some didn't, some were lukewarm. It was a matter of trust. It took a long, long time for the whole family to adjust. And a lot of people was very, very involved. He ended up in the Navy and turned out to be a fine young man, but it was a very bumpy road for a long time.
Sure.
So when you talk about forgiveness, it's difficult. Depends on where you are in the pecking order too sometimes.
It's true. It's true. Joanne, you had your hand up too. Was it you?
Yeah, it was me. And I'm
Joanne, could you sit closer to your computer, because your voice always comes through a little muffled compared to everyone else?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah. Could you be just a little?
It's
okay.
probably, the book may be.
Oh, that's perfect.
Perfect.
That's good.
It was the Bible was keeping me from you hearing.
Okay.
I'm looking at the word on, let me see, will be 25, the Ishmaelites. And I'm wondering, and also then later it says the Midianites traders. But is the Ishmaelites, is that part of Ishmael's tribe?
I would think so.
Okay, so I think it's intriguing that the Ishmael's people actually save Joseph at this point. They buy him and take him to Egypt and other things. But if you think about it, that is, Ishmael's mom and Ishmael were tossed out into the desert. And now Joseph, following that same line, is out in the desert. And I do not know why it's Midianite traders when they say that the Ishmaelites are coming by. That's confusing for me. But it's intriguing that it's the Ishmaelites that come to help him. That's all.
Okay, very interesting. Yes, Michael.
To talk about forgiveness, what Gail was talking about. I've thought about forgiveness for a long, long time, and it's from my position. There's so many dynamics involved with forgiveness that I see, and it depends. It depends on the person who is asking for forgiveness, what he did, the other person, and to what extent, and from a religious point of view, also from a moral point of view. I can see there's so much going on there. For example, I'm not an expert on Christianity nor Judaism, but if I understand it, in Christianity, you go into a box in church and you ask for forgiveness, and you're forgiven. Now if you take it to a real extreme, like murder, first-degree murder, let's say. The way I see it, the only person who could forgive that crime is the one who was murdered. You see? And so that's the only one, in my opinion. No one can forgive, only that person who was murdered. And I believe that has a lot to do with special circumstances. That's how that was developed. The death penalty. I think there's kind of a correlation going on there with the way the American justice system and on down. And so I think that would be a great subject to discuss at a later date. This business of forgiveness.
It will come up multiple times. But Michael, you said something very, very important. It was once explained to me that forgiveness, the act of forgiving is also a release for the person who is experienced the unjustified act that was committed against them. And so once you do that, you don't have to think about it anymore, because that hatred or those ill feelings can stay with you for a lifetime. You have to be willing to give that up. And as you say, it's a very complicated process of getting to that complete state of mind. Thank you for your contribution. It's a very important statement that you made.
What you just mentioned is part of the dynamics I was talking about.
Yes. Susan and then Ricky. Susan, you're muted. There you go.
I just had to look to make sure I got my mouse there. Well, anyways, I just wanted to point out, Michael, in Christianity, the way you described going into a box, well, actually, Joanne could explain that better than I can, but that's a Catholic thing. Protestants don't believe that. Protestants don't believe that a priest has the authority to forgive. I mean, the way they believe in going directly to God, the Catholics have a different viewpoint. So it's not a universal Christian thing. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Ricky.
Yeah, first, what Michael brought up about the only person who can forgive you is the person to whom you have transgressed against, I guess would be the way to put that. And
Can you repeat that? Repeat that, Ricky, please.
the only person who can forgive you is the person against whom you've transgressed.
No. It's the one who was murdered. I'm only talking about murder.
Well, no, but in anything else, I mean, it really is.
No, let me.
Realizing what you said, let me finish, please.
Okay.
That if you've read the book, The Sunflower, it is an amazing book.
I was just going to say that.
Anybody that has read it, a Nazi who's asking for forgiveness, and I won't even go any further, but the simplest definition I ever came up with for forgiveness in my own case was to give as before. To give as before whatever that transgression was. So to be in that space, or whatever you want to call it, but I just boil it down to give as before. And who's putting up
Yeah, where is this coming from?
Somebody shared their screen, whoever it is, up on the top, you'll see an unshare, a stop share.
Where do you do this?
We don't see that.
We don't know.
I don't know if original.
Chris is doing it.
Somebody else is doing this.
It's part of Chris's exercise routine, I think.
Ah, okay, got it. She was doing it.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're back.
Thank you.
We're back.
Okay, everything is okay now.
Right.
So go ahead.
Whoever that was, I forgive them.
Oh boy.
But I understand Michael's. Michael, go ahead. Why don't you?
I just want to quickly. The reason, Ricky, if I understand, just the reason I brought up the first degree murder is because it's a planned killing of a human being, and that person is dead. That's why they can't forgive. All other trends can be forgiven, such as rape, robbery, anything else, as long as the person is alive to forgive. That's why I brought that up.
But the victim is the one who must do the forgiving.
That's right, and that's what
that's what the essence of what I said was. I got it
right.
in terms, but use the word victim instead of the one who was transgressed against. The
Sounds
victim
good.
can do the forgiving, but like I can't forgive you for something you did to somebody else.
Correct.
Somebody else must forgive you.
David?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Marty. I wanted to pick up on one of the very interesting points that Michael just made, and that is about the Christian idea. You go into the little tiny box and you are forgiven. But I remember one of the best television shows that has ever been on television because of the quality of the writing is MASH. And in one of the episodes, the father is asked to forgive.
Father Mulcahy.
Yes. He is asked to forgive someone who has changed his identity completely. And he says, I'm sorry, I can't, because you are completely unrepentant and you show no sign of changing your behavior. I cannot forgive you. So the forgiveness is definitely not automatic. It's contingent on certain actions that the guilty person must do.
Good point. Good point.
And also, I wanted to just say how much I'm enjoying so much our weekly Torah session and exercise meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary, Rabbi Mary.
Well, when I was a little kid, I asked the question like everyone else, what is God? And my father, not being a religious person, he said, God is your conscience. And since then, I carry that with me, not an absolute, but I think it's a very strong answer how we carry it. I'm sure that Rabbi Norman before Yom Kippur is going to talk about forgiveness in all the different ways that it needs to happen. And the issue of literature built on doing bad, sinning, and carrying that conscience to the maximum, like crime and punishment, and literature like that, carrying that heavy thing, and what do you do with it? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Chris, and then maybe we can move on to a little slight variation of things. Yes, Chris.
Okay. Thank you, Ricky, for your forgiveness. It was me who messed it up. I lost myself in the computer. Anyway, I just wanted to say that at one time I was very confused with a reading in the Brit Hadashah that says something like the unpardonable sin or the unforgiven sin. And someone said this to me, and it has been really something to consider. He said the unpardonable sin is, some people said, well, blasphemy to God, or, no being honoring your father and your mother, or killing, or looking after your neighbor's wife, wife, or something like that. And one person said to me, the unpardonable sin is the one that you refuse to forgive yourself for.
Yeah.
And it really hit me because I thought, wow, how dare I am saying, God will not forgive me for this. In other words, putting myself higher than God to say, you can't forgive me for what I've done. It's just too much for you to forgive me, much less myself. But getting back into the forgiveness, I thought that was really important. When you come to God and believe that He has forgiven you, and that you have the repentance, like someone said, that it's attached to the works. When your child has gone astray and then suddenly he comes to his senses and he decides to be a good son, then he has really repented and forgiven. So I just wanted to say, when we are holding on to our errors or mistakes or whatever it is that we think they're higher, that God can never forgive such a thing, it's us putting ourselves higher than God, which that is blasphemy as far as I know, right, Rabbi? Or would it be something like that?
It's not a matter of putting ourselves higher than God.
Okay.
Okay,
Right.
I wouldn't use that. I wouldn't use that kind of a phrase. It's that God recognizes and is waiting for us, as you were saying, to forgive ourselves.
Exactly. Okay.
Right. I think the Christian theologian commentator who's teaching what you were describing, I believe, is Paul Tillich. It sounds like Paul Tillich's kind of teaching.
I don't know who's Paul Tillich, but
Protestant theologian.
No, I don't know. I heard it from a Unity teaching online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I wanted to move on a little bit.
Barney, could I just throw in one more thing that hasn't come out, I don't think? And that is, most people think forgiveness is for the benefit of the victim so they don't carry around resentment for the rest of their lives, not for the transgressor. I don't think I heard that come out at all.
Yeah, we had mentioned something
Yeah.
like that. And so I think it's important. I'd like to end this discussion now because there was an important question raised by Joanne, who had asked a question before about the Ishmaelites and the Midianites. And I found some information in the Plout edition of commentary. Rabbi Plout talks about has several bits of information to address that question. And let me read it from, rather than trying to paraphrase it, let me read it what he says. It is clear that originally two traditions existed. In one, Reuben is the protector and Joseph is sold to the Midianites. In the other, Judah protects his brother from being killed, but also suggests his sale and Joseph is surrendered to the Ishmaelites. So he goes on to say this fusion is facilitated, that in other words, there are two separate stories naming the two different brothers separately. And he says, but here the two different traditions are joined together. And he goes on to say this fusion is facilitated by the fact that by the time the text assumed its present form, the terms Ishmaelites and Midianites were used as synonyms.
No.
However, and again, I'm not a Hebrew expert, but the term Midianites, as it occurs in the Hebrew text, was a third synonym that had the additional connotation of quarrelsome people. So all three expressions also signified traitors, Traders, okay? And that, to the Hebrew ear, the text was further filled with literary nuances. So you have quarrelsome people from the acting as the traders in slavery, but when you trade, okay, we call it bartering.
Yeah.
Okay, and you are actually in a type of argument, the buyer and seller in a type of low scale argument between the two, trying to decide on what the price should be. So here are several different commentaries that may answer your question. I hope it doesn't confuse you, but I just found that interesting. So I had put that aside because I thought that it would come up. So Joanne, you did. I know you had your hand up. Was that to reiterate your original question, or?
Thank you. It's something I'm going to think about and
Okay.
and look up. I'm curious, but I'm also thinking today that Pope Francis has gone to the traditional maybe place in Ur for Abraham. But his statement when he arrived was, I come to you as a penitent. And he's asking them to forgive what's occurred with Christianity, Judaism, and Muslimism. I'm a penitent. I come to talk with you, to work with you, to say hello to you. And I think it very much comes into this Israelites taking and buying Joseph. It just seems like it's come through the centuries, like a telephone line or something. So thank you.
Gives us a little hope.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
maybe.
Sure. Michael, Don had his hand up first, so I'm going to let Don go and then Michael.
Just following what you said, Marty, the background reading that I do between sessions, and I'm not even close to having any expertise, but I'm understanding that there are 3 recognized sources, and the rabbis can put some light on this. The Torah, the JP and A sources, and they kind of get layered up, and sometimes there's discrepancies between them.
Actually,
and
more than 3, but you're right in that they layer upon each other.
Yes.
Different generations, right?
Yeah. So every once in a while there's a mishmash. It's not at all clear.
Sure.
And so I realize I wish I'd started this 50 years ago, but I didn't. Anyway, that was my comment.
Okay, thank you, Don. Yes, Michael.
Okay, Marty, thank you. I don't want to rehash this, but I was thinking about explaining very quickly, very, very quickly, why this business of forgiveness is so, I feel, very important. I'm going to tell you this, okay? Many years ago in California, I knew somebody who was wanted to plan something that was very bad. It was terrible. And I talked to him and I tried to talk him out of it. I wanted to do my best to please talk him out of it. And I eventually did. But what he told me was this. He says, Michael, don't worry, God is going to forgive me. He said that to me, you see? And so that's what led me to think about this business of forgiveness, the dynamics of it. That's what I wanted to, basically how
very interesting.
How this all came about for me.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, Rabbi.
Yeah, I thank you to Michael also for the illustration example. But to going back to, if it helps Joanne, just affirming what Marty said in the name of my teacher, Gunther Plaut, that at various times and schools of thought that went into the different layers of the anthology of what we now call Torah. Like I say, it's like at various times we were known as the Hebrews, and then we became known as as the children of Israel, and then the Judeans, and then the Jews, but it's the same people. So most scholarship says that, as Dr. Plaut was saying, that at one point in time they were all the peoples in the area were referred to as the Ishmaelites. And then perhaps 100 years later or 200 years later, when another layer of the text was written, they were a little more specific. And the Midianites who lived in this particular area or had this particular professional identification, they were merchants rather than those who lived by the coast and they fished. And then those who lived in the mountains and they were shepherds, whatever, different tribes. But generically, they were the Ishmaelites, and then referring specifically to those nomads that were the Midianites, that were the merchants, here and there. That's certainly the way that most tradition, whether it's Jewish or my understanding of Christian biblical scholarship, would say the same thing, is that there are different layers who are telling the story. And sometimes, I think you said, like, it's a telephone game. Sometimes as you pass it, well, I don't know who the Ishmaelites were, but I do know who the Midianites were, or vice versa.
I saw the two tribes, so to speak. Ishmael, the father, the progenitor of the Ishmaelites, was family. I mean, he was what, uncle, granduncle, something like that. And the Midianites were a local tribe. So I
Well, one's being defined by the patriarch, the other is being defined by the geographic.
Yes.
Right.
So, yeah, so the Midianites you're saying were Ishmaelites, and they're synonymous, but except how they're defined.
Yeah, so the Ishmaelites is the Americans, and the Midianites are the Southerners.
Southerners. Oh, okay.
Or the Easterners, or
Right.
Whatever.
New Yorkers.
New Yorkers.
Yeah.
The maniacs.
Okay. Any other comments here about what we just read? Okay, now, so we have the two brothers that have said this. They now wind up selling their brother for 20 pieces of silver.
Right.
Okay.
It was a sale.
Okay, Marty.
I don't know how you divide that up evenly among 12, 11 brothers, but we start wondering.
Okay. Here's where I reserve the right to come in and add a little twist. So Reuben has gone away for a while.
Yes.
We're not sure why. We're not sure where he went. There's one midrash that says, because it follows on the statement that there was no water in the hole, that Reuben went to try to find water to get some for Joseph, whatever. And then while he was gone, Judah takes over and becomes the selling of Joseph into slavery, so that when Reuben comes back, he said Joseph is no longer there. There is a trope in anti-Semitic literature that specifically picks up on this. Okay, that see, Judah representing all, could have been any of the brothers, but Judah representing all of the Jews looked for the financial benefit of even selling one of his own brothers to be able to make more money out of this story.
Didn't know that.
It's the kind of thing we wouldn't necessarily see, but in the anti-Semitic literature, this is one of their easiest and most formative stories, that how the rest of the brothers represent all of Judaism. Reuben was the one, and since they took it, they knew that he wouldn't go along, so they waited till he was gone, and then they took advantage of the opportunity to make some money.
I have a question to our Christian brothers and sisters. How much was the payment that Judah gave to the Romans selling Jesus?
20.
Because it's the same guy.
It's the same.
No,
same
it's not.
amount?
No,
More.
no.
More.
It was 30. It was 30.
Is it 30? I thought it was 20.
No, it was 30.
Correct.
We're having fun.
And there's
Inflation.
I know, that's what I thought. and there was a discussion about that, in my studies recently, and now I can't remember the thing, but in my head, why it went from 20 to 30 when there's such consistency throughout the Bible, and I could not get out of my head about inflation, but that wasn't the reason. But anyways, in the New Testament, it says 30 pieces of silver.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further discussion on this? I know what we've just read. Joanne, were you going to say something, or? Oh, okay.
I'm staying out of it right now.
Oh, okay. All right. So let's read on. So Reuben, where did we leave off? Was it 29?
Yeah, 29.
Yeah.
Okay. So if somebody wants to pick up reading from 29, and
Sure.
Ricky, you have your hand up, so go ahead.
When Reuben returned to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit, he rent his clothes. Returning to his brothers, he said, "The boy is gone. Now what am I to do?" Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a kid, and dipped the tunic in blood.
Okay, we're racing ahead. Let's do the center on 29 and 30 first.
Okay.
Any comments about that?
Reuben returned his.
What does Reuben say?
The boy's gone. What am I to do?
Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar from an earlier passage? What does Jacob say when he learns of what the brothers do?
Not just sad, but also he torns his clothing, that we know now that it's a tradition for mourning. So the first thing we hear about Reuben, who thinks that Joseph is dead.
Yeah, but he's self-centered. Remember, we had this discussion about Jacob. What am I supposed to do? I'm supposed to be the head of, become the head of the family. How is this going to affect me? And what did Jacob say? What did Jacob say after in Shechem, where this is occurring? What did Jacob say about the brothers? What am I to do?
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is
How can I
going to
fix
reflect
this?
poorly on me.
Yeah, how can I fix this, right?
Well, it's more than that. It's going to be a stain on or a blemish on his reputation.
I'm going to be blamed for this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind, that this is still, he's self-centered in this. He's not. He's only thinking about himself.
About
That's the
himself.
wrong word. But he's still worried about himself and how others will perceive him. Okay, he's not. He's not saying just what happened to him. Oh my God, what did you do? He's saying, oh my God, what's going to happen to me?
Well, I think if you're thinking that he's the elder, and his father will definitely have 1,001 questions to where were you when all of this happened? You are, like my mother used to say, you're the oldest one. What happened?
Okay.
You have to be responsible. And I said that would be the biggest thing. What is that going to do to me if I don't come up with some answers about Joseph?
Okay, good point. Any other comments here? So let's move on a little bit.
Marty?
Ricky, if you want
Yeah,
to.
what am I to do?
31.
31, thank you. Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a kid, and dipped the tunic in blood. They had the ornamented tunic taken to their father, and they said, "We found this. Please examine it. Is it your son's tunic or not?" He recognized it and said, "My son's tunic, a savage beast devoured him. Joseph was torn by a beast." Jacob rent his clothes, picked up sackcloth on his loins, and observed mourning for his son many days. All his sons and daughters sought to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, saying, "No, I will go down mourning to my soul in Sheol." Thus his father bewailed him.
Okay, let's stop at that point.
Where's the daughters? Who are the daughters here?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
Well, Dina has to be there.
Is she one? Okay. But it says daughters.
Right.
But
So it's more Dinas in there.
The father jumped to the conclusion that the son was torn by a beast. The brothers don't tell the father that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's the father's jumping to that conclusion.
So, what is the, this opens up another way of looking at deception.
Right.
You can have the concept of deception originating from without, and you can also have it from within.
Mm-hmm.
You can deceive yourself. But Jacob, who is the deceiver,
right.
Okay, it's now coming back to bite him. He's the one who's deceiving himself. He's not going any further. He's not looking into the whole situation. Any comments about that?
Denial is not a river in Egypt.
Excuse me?
Denial is not a river in Egypt.
That's a line.
That's good. I love it. I love it. Yeah, okay. Yes, Rabbi.
Well, parallel to what you're saying about the denial, whether it's denying himself with having others, it parallel to that is also the comfort. He refuses to be comforted by anybody else, and does he even comfort himself?
Mm-hmm.
Does he accept this, or is he deceiving everybody by saying, I refuse to believe that he's dead, or whatever it is. I just wanted to go back one sentence, that there's also what we talk about occasionally about the foreshadowing, is that they slaughter a goat, a kid, a young goat. They slaughter a goat for the blood to put on the thing, and then realize that generations later we talk about the goat that will be slaughtered by the high priest as the scapegoat, whatever. So it's not a lamb. Talk about the slaughter of a lamb. This is something totally different, and is that foreshadowing the slaughter for exceptional guilt?
Yeah,
It's
very interesting.
It's a good point, and I think we will. I
can't claim it. That's Maimonides. That's not.
Yes, but it should be discussed again when we get to that. When we get to that story too, because it's a very important concept. So what else is very important here? That what is well, first, Don, you were going to mention something.
I was just going to say that Jacob can't be entirely surprised, because we knew way back he must have had some trepidation about sending Joseph out to check on the flocks with his brothers when he knew the animosity there. So it seems to me that,
does he feel guilty? Does he feel guilty?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point. Very good point. But what is it all? Yes, David.
Yeah, Wendy actually.
Okay. Okay.
And I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm mirroring what Rabbi Norman said, but it strikes me that the brothers who did take Jacob out to do harm, and then for some reason they lost him, but they had his coat, they dipped it in blood. When they brought it back, it was like, we didn't do anything, but here's his coat full of blood, as if they just made themselves sound very innocent.
Yes.
And that was pretty tricky. So
Well,
anyway,
they're trying to deceive him. They're trying to deceive Jacob.
But they also tried to remove the guilt from themselves.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. That's why, that's the motivation behind it. That's right. Yes, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's funny with the way my Torah says here, my scripture says that they brought in this cloak to Joseph, and it said, "It's your son. You decide if it is your son's or not, your son or not." And I thought, it's their brother they're talking about, and they kind of dump it on him like, is this your son? You know, we don't know. We don't know if this is your son. And again, this is a big deceitfulness and a big disrespectful way of saying we can identify it. And they knew well the coat was Joseph's, but the way they presented it was like, we don't really care if it is Joseph's or not. That's
Correct.
how I think.
Mary.
Okay, yes, Mary.
Yeah, this is a preview like in the movies, but I suggest that we look at the story of Joseph as a story of textiles or clothing.
Yeah.
Yes, that's another way to look at this. I
Right.
think that we can come back when we to this what you just mentioned. It is very, very. I think it's very important what you just brought up because we have to talk about. We're going to leave off at this point. It's already 12, but it's something that we'll come back to with our next session. Because I think that
2 weeks. We have a service next Saturday.
Yes,
so 2
that's
weeks.
right.
Thank
Right.
you, Rabbi.
Thank you for mentioning that. And it's going to become very important in our discussion. And also what Jacob says here. And we're going to have, so we'll come back with our discussion. And Mary, I'm going to ask you to start us off. We'll reread things and then get on with it. Somebody hit.
Uh-oh.
I'm looking
I
at
got a
someone's
dog
screen
on
again.
I got a dog on my thing. Oh my
Bet
God.
it's great.
What happened?
Anyway, if you unshare it, that'll be helpful. Even your dog is surprised.
Oh, I can't get out.
Oh, maybe we should just go home.
Yeah, I think that we'll have to end everything.
Anita?
You are viewing No, it's Grace.
There we go.
It's
Oh,
great.
wow.
In a couple of weeks,
The mouse went crazy. I apologize.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a cute dog.
Yeah.
You are granted forgiveness.
Yes.
And again.
Okay, everyone, have a
We're
great
pretty
week.
good about
Shabbat
this.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Regards to Lynn.
Hey, Chris, don't go because I'm the host, so I can keep this open.
Okay.
Well, we'll be going.
Okay.
Yeah, you guys can all leave.
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
stay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Andy. Bye, Susan. Bye, Grace.
Bye-bye.
Nope.
Bye, Wendy.
Wendy's trying.
Okay, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, she put me in. I hate when they end, when, Ruth Ann, like 2 seconds after so-and-so says goodbye, boom, she closes.
Don't have a chance to really talk to anybody.
And with our program meetings, we purposely stay open. That's a period of fellowship.
Right, that would be great. That really would be great.
But she doesn't do it that way. Maybe I'll talk to her about that sometime.
Yeah.
How valuable it is.
No, we can stay here as long as we want to.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, I thought we had really an hour or 2 or 3, and that would shut up.
No.
Oh, this is so cool. Well, we can even do the.
They bought they've done 2-hour movies. So they bought the Zoom. The free Zoom, we only have 40 minutes. And then there's different levels. I don't know which one she bought, but I know. Yeah, but we're on for tomorrow, right? We're on for tomorrow?
Yes, I'm still on for tomorrow. I just got my Kabbalah book today. Yesterday was Friday. I got it in the morning. So I started to read it about today, and I didn't really pick up much from there.
I read one that I was sort of kept putting off, but I read it cover to cover. Another one I had that I hadn't read which is also on counting the Omer, is much more as far as the 49 days, 7 times 7. But so I wouldn't recommend that. But now, did you copy that?
You know, we're getting a bad communication. I think it shuts off after an hour. I can't hear you no more. Ricky? Ricky?
Almost. There you are. You were gone there for a minute, so I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, no, I lost you and you're breaking out a lot. So I don't know.
My connection is unstable. Did you copy that, those 49?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's done. So but I guess one of the things that I was going to start with tomorrow, sort of like 2 questions I have for you.
Okay.
One is, how much do you know about Kabbalah and what got you into Kabbalah?
Okay. Well, you know, it's just you and me, sweetie. So it's going to be fun. I really, truly, desperately appreciate the time that you are giving me for this.
But have you done anything about Kabbalah? Do you know what the Ein Sof is, for example?
Well, I started a book on the Zohar many 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And then, but nobody's listening, right? I hope not.
No.
Okay. Well, no.
Wait a minute. Stop. She had it set for recording. Stop recording. Do you want stop it? Yes.